to Art Journaling for Personalised Pages. My name's Kate Crane. You may have seen me in Craft Stamper or Scrap 365 in the UK, or in some of the American art publications. You may even have seen me on my previous art journaling DVDs, and if that's the case, welcome back. In this DVD, I'm going to complete the pages I started in bold backgrounds, adding some more stamping, colour, doodling, and eventually the journaling to take my pages through to completion. Although when I say completion, I can't actually ever say a page is finished, as I may come back to it at any time and add a bit more. But this is the stage where you can really go to town and truly personalise your pages with your choice of image and your thoughts. Coming back to this double page inky spread, and let me show you some of the things that I'm going to use to finish this page off. Now my white Sharpie poster paint pen, in fact any white gel pen would do for something like this. I'm going to use my fine liner pen. I'm going to need a couple of ink pads because I'm going to stamp a little bit more on top of an image that I'm going to add. Here's my image. You may recognise this one if you've watched my previous DVDs. I used this in a slightly different way before, but it is one of my favourite images. It is in fact a vintage rubber glove mould. I'm going to add that at some point onto the page. I'm going to use a little bit of oil pastel, so I'm going to use my portfolios just to add a little bit of colour. And I've chosen a couple of stamps, and these are from a bigger set by 7 Gypsies. Disclaimer stamp, so I'm going to add a couple of words to the page. I'm going to use a little bit of this washi tape, and I'm going to eventually do my journaling with my dip pen and some calligraphy ink, so you can see how that works. And I've got my liquid pearls ready just in case. I might add a little bit more detail to the image with those. First of all, I'm going to go in with my Sharpie. I'm going to go back to these leaves that I stamped before, and I'm just going to add some little flashes of light to these. I don't worry too much about which side it should be on. Technically the flashes should all be on the same side, but for the purpose of this I think we can get away with being a bit random. And it just kind of brings those leaves to life a bit. You don't need to get all of them, just little flashes of light. So I'm switching to my fine liner pen because these gesso circles that scraped through a stencil are perfect for scribbling around. And I like loose scribbles. Really loose. So you'll see I'm going around each one several times just to get that real scribbly look. Even if it's a part circle like that, you can still give it a good scribble. I'm going to come back to these in a moment with a bit of oil pastel as well, because I can now just add a little bit of colour now that we've edged the circles. Now it's best to do this bit first. Once you add oil pastel, it's very difficult to write over because of the oil content. So always add the oil pastel last as your final touch, otherwise you'll find you can't write over anything. See, these are still really loose, really scribbly. Now switch to an oil pastel. So I'm going to use a similar yellow colour to what's already here. So I'm staying in the same colour family, and I'm just going to add a bit of colour to each of those circles. Again, this is very loose, a bit haphazard. You see, I'm just really doing it around one edge of the circle. This is just another layer, another way of adding a bit more colour to the page. You've probably guessed by now I really do like colour. And you can keep intensifying colour by adding more layers with pastels, pan pastels. You could use pan pastel for this. If you've got Neocolour crayons, they would do the same sort of thing. Anything that you can just go in with and add a little bit more colour. Now I'm going to look at where to add my image to the page. This page is quite busy, there's already a lot of detail here, and I think that kind of works as it is, but that image I could just place there. And I think to hold it in place I'm just going to use a glue stick. This is a Ink Essentials glue stick. It's for collage. I don't know if you can see that there. It's stronger than your average glue stick and it will hold things in place. I'm also going to use some tape, but just to hold this in place, first of all, I'm going to add that there. Now this is washi tape. It's sort of semi-translucent masking tape. And it's a nice way, it's another little feature on your page, just of holding things in place. Now back to my word stamps. This stamp says evidence. I think I'll stamp this one in red. Just make sure that's well inked. I think I'll just stamp that right across the centre there. One of the advantages of clear stamps is you can see where you're going with that. And this one says proof. So I'll stamp this one now in black. Perhaps just slightly overlap those. Now back to the oil pastel. I think what I might do with this is just bring a line around the edge of that glove shape there. Again, this is just another layer of colour. And you don't have to be too exact with this. Which is just as well, because I'm never that exact with anything. Now I think we can bring in just a few little dots of liquid pearls. So I'm just going to add some dots along here. I won't go all the way down, I'm just adding a little bit of detail to that corner. And perhaps with a bit of white as well. Okay, the white doesn't want to work, so we'll have yellow. And I'll do the same again in this corner. And just switch back to the red, just because it ties in with all the colours that are already there. And that's about done. I'm quite happy with that page now. That page is busy enough here. I've just left myself a little space here. I'm going to journal in this little space that I've got here. It's just right for some journaling there. I'm going to journal here, and I'm going to start with the date stamp. This is just a regular date stamp from like an office supply store. I'm going to switch to this dip pen. This is unpredictable, that's why I like it. 8th of June 2012. People pleaser. It's a good idea to have a spare piece of kitchen roll and just mop up any ink. There should be enough that's held in a little well. Sometimes I say yes when I mean no. When I really mean no, I should just say no. The thought of upsetting or offending anyone really scares me. I'm going to give myself some journaling lines as I go along, something to write on. I need to get me some attitude. Right, that's it. The gloves are off. I'm going to complete this 2-page spread, the one with the page underneath. And these are some of the things I'm going to be using to finish this page. I'm going to use my Dymo label maker. You can probably see I've got some printed out ready here. I'm going to use a stamp by Stamp-A-Teak. Usually these come wood mounted, just so you know, but I've got mine on an acetate block. And I've also previously stamped that image and coloured. I've coloured here with some distress inks, and I'll explain the reason for that as I go along. I'm going to use my Sharpie white pen. Again, any white gel pen would do for this, because I'm going to go around this frame here and to colour in some of those areas that are still red there. I'm going to use this glue stick again to stick down my image. Quite often I like to use gel medium, but gel medium does react with the inks, and this is a page that used ink, so I'm going to stick to the glue stick so I don't affect any of that background. And I'm going to do some journaling on a page that I've taken out of an old book, because I like the colour of the paper, it's nice for writing on. And then I'm going to cut that out and stick that on the page. So first of all, these corners here where I stamped previously, they just need neatening off, and that's easy enough to do with the marker. And those gaps in between, they look better, I think, if they're white. So just to protect that page, I'm just going to slot that under there. So I'm just going to go in each of those red squares and fill them in with a white pen. This creates a really nice frame then. Again, you'll see I'm not being that accurate. It's good enough. As this dries, it may go a slight pinkish colour as it picks up some of the ink. If that bothers you, you can just go back over again with your white pen. And in a moment, when I remove that piece of paper here, you'll see it stands out really nicely then against the blue underneath, and the blue and green. See, some of those are going a bit pinkish already, but if it goes too pinky, I'll just go over that again. If I just remove that there, you'll see we've got a really nice black and white frame around that now. Now the wording. Let me show you what happened when we were filming the first page. I dropped my stamp. Now, one thing I have got good at over the years is covering up mistakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my quote just there. That will cover most of that and it won't be too obvious. Now, you really can't avoid things like that happening sometimes, so you just got to work with it. And I might just go around the edge of those as well with a pen. It just helps to hide some of that ink that I dropped. There's usually something that you can do if that happens to you. Something you can stick over it or incorporate it, make it part of your page. Okay, so there, you'd never know. Now I'm going to move on to my stamp now. And I'm going to stamp here so that the character is actually stood on the base of the frame there. I need to get this nice and inky because I've only got one chance to get this right. So he's going to go just there. Now, back to the one that I stamped earlier. Because this image is too detailed to cut out, but I still want the character to have like a flesh-coloured face and coloured wings, what I've done here is coloured in the bits that I need. I'm going to cut these bits out and then stick it over the top of the stamped image here. That way I get the colours, but I also get all the detail that would just be impossible to cut out. So I've cut out the bits that I need here. I'm just going to apply glue stick. And then place those over where the image, so it's going out exactly where it was stamped. Now you can see why I like to cut those bits out. Now this is a bit fiddly. You might find this easier with tweezers. So now he's got a coloured body and coloured wings. And just one more bit here, I want to just add the hands. That's why I like to cut these bits out and add them to the image, so I get all the detail of the stamp here, but I get the colour here that I like that just brings that image to life. I'm going to do a little bit of journaling now that I'm going to add to this second page here. I want this page to work alone, so it's a standalone page, and then this page is a standalone page, but then they also work together. I'm going back to this quote here, which is kind of taken from the fact that this image has the wings here. And it's a well-known sort of phrase, spread your wings and fly. But in my opinion, it's not that easy to do. It takes a lot of courage. So I'm just going to journal a little bit about that on this page. This is the vintage text page here. It's a nice colour, nice to write on. I'm going to cut this out in strips, and I'm going to add that to the second page here. It takes real courage to fly. It's just not as easy as it sounds. We all want to fly, but sometimes we don't know how to take off. So I've cut my journaling out here and I'm going to stick it on here. This is a really nice way to journal on a page if you're just a bit tentative about writing on a page, that fear of kind of spoiling things. It's a nice way to do it. What I don't want that to show through from the front. I want that to appear as I turn the page over. So I'm going to put them here. So my first sentence there, slightly offset with each other, and then this one I'll just bring a bit further down here. And again, I'm just going to add those with the glue stick, so I don't want to make that ink run by using gel medium. I'm just going to bring this section just a little bit lower. Oops, get it straight. So 2 pages that work separately and together. Page with a frame. This is the page that I was working on previously that started off as spills of ink, just kind of mopped up, and excess ink on stencils mopped up and stamped a little bit more on. These, I should have said on the previous DVD, these are 7 Gypsy stamps here, handled with care and warning. I'm going to add some more to this today, but let me just talk you through what I might add to this page. So I might use a bit of pan pastel. I like to bring pastels in, especially inside circles like this. You can just add a little bit more colour. Now, I've cheated a bit here. I do like stitching on pages and I like threads hanging, but because this would be quite tricky to get under a sewing machine, I've stitched this first so that I can add those, and it looks like they've been stitched to the page. I'm going to use this image. You can see my stamp's really well used. This is a Stampatique image, and I've already cut her out, coloured her in with Distress inks. Let me just show you when I cut out. I do cheat a bit and cut through arms and things. Once you stick that back down, you would never know. I might want to date stamp it and make a feature of that. And I've added a quote here. This is a Stampatique quote, and I think it goes really well with that image. And I'm going to add a little bit of text along the bottom here just to kind of hide that raggy edge there where I double stamped. So that is going to go along the bottom there. Now, first of all, I'm going to go in with some pan pastel. I can just bring it round these circles here. Just add some little touches like that. And pan pastel will stay put. I don't need to put anything on that to seal it. It will be fine. Now if I add these here, I think I'm going to use gel medium. Just got to be careful that the gel medium doesn't make any inks run underneath, but it might just need something a bit stronger because of the stitching. And I might just bring those in along there. I'm just going to add a little bit of gel medium on the back. Gel medium will hold most things in place, including three-dimensional objects. I don't want these to be too regular. So I'll leave a bit of a gap here, and it also means you can see that number stamp through. And you get these nice sort of grungy threads hanging off as well. Now this one I'm going to add, it just covers up that edge there, but I'm going back to the glue stick for this one. And put that there, and it also means that my little figure has got something to stand on. I'm going to add her with the glue stick as well. Well, bits like this that I've cut through will just stick down nicely back in place. Sometimes I'm a bit lazy and I can't be bothered to get the craft knife out, so I just cut through things and it works fine. Now you'll notice she's slightly offset from the centre. reason why she's offset to one side is all to do with the rule of thirds, which is something that we're aware of even if we're not aware that we're aware of it, because it surrounds us all the time. If you imagine that the page is cut into 3 that way and that way, then your image is best placed if it's on the third, especially if the kind of main feature also is where that line intersects. That's why things look, it's more comfortable to have them slightly offset. Now I'm going to add my quote here. I'm going to cut these out though, so that they are separate little phrases. And that way I can have them a bit wonky if I want to. And now I'll add those words with a glue stick as well. And I love that phrase. It absolutely sums up how I feel sometimes when I'm in a bad mood. Along with that grumpy character. I'm just going to add these as individual phrases, bit of glue stick. That should be strong enough to hold those well in place. If you wanted to, you could go around all of these phrases with a fine marker. I don't think I will this time, but you could. So there, the perfect phrase. Do I look like a freaking people person? Now I think I'm going to add the date stamp. I do try and date stamp all of my pages. I quite like to make a feature of it, so I think I may do this twice or maybe even 3 times. So I'm back to the archival jet black ink. And perhaps down this side as well. Just one last one there. And I'm just going to add just some couple of touches of black. It just needs grunging up a little bit, especially with this kind of grungy image. So I've just got my card and I'll just add some little touches. And then I'm probably going to leave that page there. I think the image itself, along with that quote, kind of says enough. However, at some point, if I was really feeling grumpy and the wrong way out, I might just come back to this page and journal a bit more, but at the moment that is saying enough for me. So back to this page now with the central frame here. I'm going to add some images to this. So let me just talk you through these. That's the body from a vintage photograph. It was a little girl. This is by Tumblefish Studio, and I'm adding to that a head of a doll. Some people find dolls a bit freaky, but I really like them. And that's by Rianne Designs. And I'm also going to add some extra little bits here. And I've cut these pieces from a bigger sheet of borders by Tumblefish Studio. So this sort of thing. I've just cut some bits out of here. And I'm going to add that border there. just to make that a bit more interesting, I'm going to add that there. And then this is a little tip I picked up from Dina Wakely. This is a really nice way just to finish things off. I'm going to add those along the top there. You'll see I've already done this. I've added a little quote here, and I found that back in my very well used vintage textbook there. It's from a child's verse, and I've already added that along the top. So I'm going to put these images on with gel medium, as I haven't used any ink, so I can't make anything run on this page. If you're going to put gel medium on with a brush, keep one brush for this purpose, because the brush is never quite the same after you've had it in gel medium. Gel medium just holds things really, really firmly in place. Sometimes it's easier to do it this way, to put the gel medium there and add that there. Okay, so now for the body. And I want this body to sit just at the bottom of the frame here. It almost looks like she's looking out of a window. And then when I bring this head in, I can always angle it. Gives it a different look. Just have that slightly to one side. Looks like she's thinking a bit. And I'll add these little triangles. Now with my superfine marker, I'm just going to go around the edges of all of these here, just highlight these a little bit. Now before I add any detail to these bits here, I really need to make sure that gel medium is dry, because the minute this pen comes into contact with anything that's a bit wet, it'll stop working immediately. So I'm just going to pause there and give that a good dry with a heat gun. Okay, so this is feeling dry enough now to go on with a pen. I'll just give these a little bit of definition. Maybe back with the Sharpie pen again, or a Posca, or any kind of white gel pen would do. And these ones, I might just continue these little dots. I did these previously, but just so it brings it down to the edge of the image there. And now back to the border down here. I might just go along here and just add a little scribble as I go. Right, now that page is ready for some journaling. The way I tend to journal with a square frame in the centre is I might start to write along this way and then turn it right up this way, right down this way, and keep turning it so it gives me plenty of writing space. Before I journal, I'll just add a couple of date stamps. And I'll have one here. Now, the quote that I've added along the top here, which is the one I found in the children's book, it says, "Now my little heart goes a-beating like a drum." Now this quote, it just jumped out at me from the page. I was actually looking for a piece of text for something else, but this quote jumped out at me because actually filming these DVDs is really nerve-wracking for me, and so I thought, yeah, that kind of fits in with how I'm feeling, and I'm just going to journal a little bit about that now. This is a familiar feeling for me, the feeling of, oh why did I agree to do this? It takes me right back to my college days when I had to perform in front of a crowd of people. The beating heart, the feeling of general restlessness, but it seems like if someone dangles a carrot, I have to take it, and why not? I don't want to live a life of regrets and what-ifs. Sometimes you have to climb right out of your comfort zone and take some risks. A life isn't worth living unless you push yourself a little once in a while. And what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, yeah, you know what that is. But lay low for a while and come out smiling. Back to this page now, which is the one that we did some dry brushing on and the bottle lid border. I'm going to add a tag to this page. And here's one I've prepared. This is using the same ink techniques that we've used previously. So the bit of ghosting. I've added a bunting stamp. This is a delusion stamp. There's a picture of me. And I'm going to have this somewhere on the page. I quite like my splat there, so I think I'll have it on that side. Now, before I attach that, I'm just going to do a little bit of doodling around the edge, so I'm going to need my fine marker pen again. And I'm going to use some stamps. These are by Hero Arts letter stamps, because I'm going to actually stamp some headings on this page. So first of all, I'm going to just go around the whole edge with a bit of a scribbly doodle. So this is just a straight line with an occasional scribble thrown in. Now back to these bottle lids here. Just want to join these to make it more of a feature here. So back to the scribbling again. I'm just going to join them with some little lines here. I'm going to add my tag here. So I'll just use a bit of a glue stick. And now I'm going to use my letter stamps and I'm going to stamp some headings. Now, I never measure where I'm going to put those stamps. I go straight on. And if it's a bit wonky, then that's just how it is. So this is with the archival ink again. So I don't mind if these letters are a bit wonky, that's kind of part of the look. Well, I'm going to leave some space here for journaling. I'm going to give myself another heading here. And a bit more space for journaling here, and then I'm just going to put my final heading down here. So, there are my headings that I'm going to journal under. I'm going to use my fine marker. This page is all about me, hence the photo of me. I know me best of all, so I've always got plenty to say, and I'm going to write about the good side of my personality. I am creative. I am an artist. I love to make things, anything. I am honest. I am kind. I am always calm, very calm in a crisis. Nothing or no one is going to ruffle my feathers. I am super well organised. I am a great multitasker, but I am a woman. The bad. I've got duck syndrome. I can be totally calm on the outside, but fretting like mad on the inside. I'm a control freak. Nobody can do the job as well as I can. I'm moody too, up and down. And then the really ugly. When I am tired, I can be foul, and I know it, but I can't stop myself. Now, if you're going to do this, be really, really honest about yourself. I can gather up lots and lots of resentment, let it build, and then fire it all out at the nearest person. It's not pretty. Just looking again at this page now that we did with the three colours in the colour triangle. I'm going to add some images to this page, so let me just talk you through these images. These bits here are by Tumblefish Studio again, and this doll image is by Rianne Designs. Now, I've used my Dymo label maker because when I first came across this quote here where it says life, I just wanted to add these words here. So I'm using that then as part of my journaling. Sometimes life sucks, because sometimes it does. Sometimes things go wrong. I'm going to use a little bit of pan pastel, and I'll use one of these shades of yellow. I'm not sure which one yet, but I'm going to go over some of these circles that I made earlier through the stencil. And I'm just having this bottle lid ready again, because I might just want to bring this lid shape here in over that image just to kind of help embed that into the page a bit. I'm going to stick these images down with gel medium, and I'll brush that on because it is quite a big area to cover. I'll start with that quote and get that one in place. I'm going to bring this doll over the edge there so I can still read that word. It's hard to say how you select images. There's thousands and thousands of digital images available, but sometimes images just speak to you. this one definitely does. It's the way she's kind of wrapped up. If you've got bits curling up, you can just go back in and also over the top with gel medium. And get those edges really smooth and flattened down. Now with this here, I know that looks red, actually I use it for yellow on the other side. And where we've got these white circles, I can just colour those in. And pastels are extremely easy to use. Really easy, they blend really easily, they go on really nicely, they stay put. A nice way of adding a bit of extra colour. Yeah, that's really defined those circles there now. Now I'm going to bring this border in along the top here. And I'm using this little technique again, just to add a little extra feature around the head here. And then later on, when that's dry, I shall outline those with a marker pen. And I've taken another tumblefish image there. I'm just going to add that bird to the end of that border there. And I can stick those around that life quote there. Now one other thing I want to do on this page, where there was this circle before, I'm going to re-stamp that. Just check that that's got enough paint on. So I'm kind of going over where it was before, but bringing it over the doll image. And I just need to dry that a bit. What I'm going to do is bring a bit of pastel in around the edge here as well, and it just helps to embed that image into the page a little bit. So I just need to give that a quick blast. So now that's dry, I can just bring this inside that circle. So it's not quite dry, I'll just avoid those edges. Now one final thing I want to add, just back with my fine liner, going back to these bits here, just to give these a bit of definition. And around the edges of these as well. You can add a little scribble every now and then if you want. back to this quote down here as well, this detail. I'm just going to go around these edges. Just defines it a little bit. Oops. And that's that page done. I don't feel a need to journal on that page anymore. That says it all to me. And sometimes bad things happen, we have to deal with them. It's out of your control, and that says it all. Sometimes life sucks. Here's the calendar page that I prepared earlier. I've added a little bit more to it since then, just built a little bit more on the background. I'm just going to talk you through some of the elements I'm going to add to this page. Now, there's a lot of people doing this as a challenge on my blog, but everybody's doing it really differently. There's lots of different ways you could tackle this, but I'm just going to show you how I tend to do it. Obviously, I've got the double page spread, and I like a week on a line, which means I've got to divide my week into 3 and 4, or it could be 4 and 3, and I like to use scraps of scrapbook paper because I've got so much scrapbook paper and so many scraps. So I tend to use them up, cut them into 1.5 inch squares. And I tend to do this as I go along. If I've got paper left over, I cut it into squares, and that way I've got a bag full of squares ready to go. I don't tend to match them up too much, just as they are, and so on. So I'd need one for every day of the month. Now, just a little warning here, always check how many days there are in the month. We've all done it. I've done 31 days on a month that had only 30, and worse than that, I actually wrote on it and got very confused the following month. So always check that, and also check where the month starts. So this page is going to be for September 2012, which I know starts on a Saturday, and I always like to start my week on a Monday, and I'm consistent in that, otherwise I get confused. Now, more of the vintage scrap paper. And I've used here some Paper Artsy letter stamps. This is Words Plate 2. And I've stamped those onto here. I've stamped the month. And I'm going to cut these into squares so I can add my month along the top here. For the days, I've handwritten these. I'm going to cut these out and add them above each column. But I also need a feature for the page, and what I've done, I've drawn some houses which I'm going to add along the bottom. I'm going to show you how I did this. So, back to the old text again. Now, I think as adults we get a little bit fearful of drawing. Children don't have a problem with it at all, but adults sometimes get a little bit nervous about drawing. We think we're not good enough. But actually a house is a really good place to start. But what I do like to do is just double line everything. Give it a little sketchy quality. And I'm deliberately being a bit wonky here. I'm going to bring in a nice pointed roof here. Remember, these houses don't have to be realistic at all. I can give this one a really tall door. And I am quite untidy when I draw. I like it that way. I like it to be a little bit imperfect. If you're struggling with the drawing, here's another trick. I'll just use this scrap here, that will do. Try doing it with your non-dominant hand. Now this is definitely my non-dominant hand. Whoa, it goes very wonky, but this takes away that urge to be perfect, because you can't be. You can't be perfect with your non-dominant hand. Things will do as they want to do. You've got wonky lines, you've got much less control. coloured in and added to the page, that wouldn't look out of place with the ones I've drawn with my dominant hand. So what I've done with mine, I've cut them out, coloured them in with distress ink. Sometimes I add a little bit of pastel as well, just to brighten the colours a little bit. And I've done 5 houses, different shapes. And one final thing I've looked for here is a little quote about, this is a quote about autumn, and somewhere on my page I will add that, because that's a suitable quote, because this is going to be a September page. Now when I add these to the page, I'm going to use gel medium, because I'm hoping that this calendar is going to stand the test of time, that perhaps sometime in the future my children might look back at this and see what I was doing. It's a good recollection of their lives as well and what they were doing. Now when I start to add these, I don't measure. So it doesn't matter if they're a bit wonky, I'm happy with that, but the task can't be too onerous. If I'm doing one of these every month, and I've been doing this for some years, I'll just flick back through here and show you some previous pages. Hey, I've been doing this for some time. So it can't be too onerous. Measuring would take a long time. You don't even have to stick these on. You could even draw squares. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever you're happy doing. I'm going to get all those squares in place before I add the month or the days. Now, as the month goes on, this page will start to look very different, because I may decide to add more to my background. I might add extra stamps, extra doodling. If I've been somewhere interesting, I might add the ticket. And then when it's ready, on each day, I will just journal the most interesting part of that day. That's not every day is that interesting. If there's really nothing interesting, it might just be what we had for tea. It doesn't have to be writing. You could stamp a picture to represent something that happened in your day. Could even do a little watercolour, little drawing. Whatever you do, it will be small, because you've only got this small space to journal on. So that's all of my squares glued in place. A little bit wonky. As I say, I don't measure anything. That's fine, that's good enough. Now I've cut out my letters. These are the paper artsy letters, which I've stamped onto text. I'm just going to use a scrap of paper, so I can just use a bit of gel medium. You can see again I'm going for the wonky look. The fun thing about doing this as a challenge or as a hobby is actually writing in it every day. And if this becomes too much of a onerous measuring task, you're just not going to want to get your pages ready. So I try and go for the quick and easy approach, and then I know it's ready and I can write on it every day. Once you've been doing this for a while, it's really interesting to look back and see what you were doing this time last year, or see what the weather was like this time last year. Where did you go on holiday? All those things that just get a bit forgotten. When this is dried, what I will do, I'll go around the edge of these letters with a marker pen. I've used the same stamp set to put the date on, but rather than do it individually, I've done that just in one. And days of the week I've just handwritten. And I've found that so far gel medium works long term. Now sometimes other glues can dry out over time, but this one, so far things have been staying in place, and I've been doing this now for about 3 years, I think. Okay, so that's kind of the essential stuff there. That's the details of the month, the year, days of the week. And now what I want to do is bring in the elements that I've made earlier. I'm just going to play with them a bit and see which ones work best where. It doesn't matter if they overlap the squares. I quite like it overlapping a little bit. I'm going to put those on with the same gel medium. To make sure I bring that one over that edge there. And sometimes, I don't know if you can see on there, if you're using text every now and then, you just come across a word that you've accidentally used in your piece. And there's that one. I chose the word sings because I love singing. I'm always singing. So when I saw that, I decided just to make a little feature of it there. And just a couple to add to this side. And this is a nice tall one, so this is going to come up between the gap between the days there. And now for my quote, I'll just randomly put that along the bottom. So just some finishing touches now up here. So back with the fine liner pen, and I'll just edge those letters. And make sure your gel medium's really dry before you do this. I've ruined a lot of pens by being impatient. And around the days of the week as well. And in a moment I'm going to add the actual date to every square. Now there's different ways of doing this. You could stamp them on, if you've got little number stamps. You could just handwrite them on. Sometimes I do just handwrite them on, put a little circle around the date. Or you could use the date stamp. Maybe vary it every month, do something a bit different. I have sometimes done circles for the days as well with the circle punch, and that's just That's nice for a change. Or you could vary the shapes. So for September, if you've got a leaf punch, you could have leaves for the autumn days. So sometimes I like to use the date stamp. Just mean you've got to change it for every day, but you kind of get into a rhythm doing this. So you can stamp the date in a different place as well. Move it on one. So it doesn't always have to be at the side or the top, you can vary things. And I do like to do this before the month starts because I very easily get in a muddle. If I haven't got dates and things on, if life gets a bit hectic, I need to know what the day is and go straight to it. So I like to get all of that done at the start of the month. And that's it for Personalised Pages. I hope that you've been able to play along and that you'll take some of these ideas and techniques and give them your own twist and have a play in your own art journals. Hope you've enjoyed this DVD. Thanks for watching. Finally, just some useful bits and pieces and some essential items that you might find. Essentials. Okay. Also, we're going to use liquid pearls are a recent discovery for me, but they're a great way to add a dimension. Oh, what was I going to say? Join me in. That's what makes me laugh.